Yo, Higasson here, and today we are talking about the Avengers. Or if you're like me and you're from the UK, you might know it as Avengers Assemble. I'm so excited to rewatch this film, so I just want to get straight into it. So straight away, is Avengers a good film? Of course it is. It's amazing. Even going back and rewatching it with all of the other MCU films that we've had since then, it's still great. Directed by Joss Whedon, the man who brought us Firefly and Serenity, and it's definitely got his stamp on it. I feel like this Avengers film is definitely set the ballpark for all of the rest of the films to come. Really sets up the kind of the tone of the MCU that we know and love today. Everything about this film just kind of fits so perfectly, you know. The action is on point, the humour is on point.
This is my bargain, you mewling quim.
There are so many memorable scenes.
You mewling quim.
More often than not, they're all merged together into one.
I am a god, you dull creature, and I will not be bullied by that. Puny god.
And of course, being Joss Whedon, the characters are on point. But more about them later on. First of all, I just want to talk a little bit more about the direction. The editing in this film is amazing. So many times you cut from one scene to another and they just relate so perfectly. You know, it will often end with one person saying something that will lead straight into the next scene. You know, you have like Nick Fury being like, we don't win wars without soldiers. And then it cuts straight to Captain America. And there's so many little moments like that. It just seems like everything has purpose, everything was all thought out well in advance, and just the cinematography and everything just blends together so perfectly. But let's get a little bit more into the characters. You know, these are the core of the film, the Avengers. Obviously what is brilliant about this film is that we have had all of the other films leading up to it. So we get into the Avengers and we don't need as much setup, you know. A lot of the characters, a lot of the themes, a lot of the mythology around them, it's already established. So we don't have to constantly go back and re-remind ourselves about it. So, you know, the film starts off straight away. We've got Eric Selvig from Thor talking about gamma radiation from Hulk. And there's the Tesseract from Captain America. You don't need any of that explained. Nick Fury is also there from the original Iron Man, but mainly Iron Man 2. And you already know it all, so you don't have to waste time, you know. You can just get straight to the point, and it gets straight to the point with Loki turning up. And man, it's a great opening scene. Seeing Loki again, and this time he's actually more of a menace. You know, you actually get to see him being a proper bad guy, taking people out, walking in like the boss. You can see in his eyes that he's been through some stuff since we last saw him in Thor. He's gained new powers thanks to Thanos. He's got his staff, which we later find out is also an Infinity Stone. And it's just great to see him. He instantly takes control of loads of people, including Hawkeye, which his introduction is probably one of the weakest ones. I'll get more into his character later on. But the other person that steals this early scene is, of course, Nick Fury. And this is like, this beginning bit is like his own like little mini film. You know, we've seen him in loads of other films just as cameos. Here we actually get to see Nick Fury in action, on screen, on his own for the most part. You know, these are his moments and they're great. Get a lot more Coulson, and we also get introduced to Maria Hill, who's a very loyal S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, very loyal to Nick Fury, and she's a great new addition to the cast overall. We don't really get to see much of her in the film. Again, this beginning bit is like the kind of like the mini S.H.I.E.L.D. movie, and you get to see a lot of her beats, but you know, she plays more roles as we go throughout the MCU, but just a great new character in the franchise. Then we get reintroduced to all of the other characters that we've grown to know throughout the other films. And again, you don't have to spend too much time on each of them because we've already had their films that establish their characters, but even these scenes where you reintroduce to them, they're great. They're so much fun just to re-see these characters. Like I say, even going back after watching all of the rest of the MCU films all the way up to Infinity War, these little introduction scenes, they're so great for each character. In particular, Black Widow's one is really good. We get to see her doing her job more and more action from her, because we'd only previously really seen her in as a side character in Iron Man 2. So it's great to see her doing more of her like kind of Black Widow style stuff. And her scene was so funny. It looks like she's the one being interrogated, but she's actually interrogating them. And, you know, Shields knows all about what's going on, and she has that in complete control and beats all of these guys up that have captured her while she's tied to a chair. Then we also have another one of note is the Hulk introduction or reintroduction, or actually no, introduction, because this time we're introduced to the Hulk in the form of Mark Ruffalo. And his introduction is great. Hulk is kind of back to where he was at the beginning of The Incredible Hulk. Out of all of the MCU films, this is the film, The Incredible Hulk, is the one that you can probably take away. And this scene on its own is just a great reintroduction, even if you haven't seen the Hulk. You know, everything about Bruce Banner is established in this one scene. You know, you find out about hints about his powers, hints about what he's been doing, his life in between these films. And Mark Ruffalo just plays the character so well. He's instantly so likeable. And there's loads of other like great little hints in there. There's one scene where he's like, "Oh, I don't always get everything I want." He just puts his hand on a cot, and the cot's got like little green paint splats on it, and it's just, obviously he's talking about the fact that he didn't get to have the family and the life that he's wanted because he's been on the run with the Hulk. And it's just these great little moments. You get great little chemistry between him and Black Widow, which obviously sets up their relationship that develops in the later films, mainly Age of Ultron. It's great to see that in the early stages here, and I just really like his introduction. As like I say, it's a great refresh into a character that is now played by a completely different actor, and you're not taken back by it at all. You're straight in there with the character again, and it just feels completely normal. But just because the characters have had their own films doesn't mean that their stories are finished. We also get a lot of continuing arcs in this film. We still have Tony Stark kind of learning to work with other people and not just be all about himself. We've got Captain America still adjusting to life in the future, and I'm not sure how long it was in between, but it seems like it was quite close to the end that we saw, the end credits of Captain America, where he's in the future and he's still very much adjusting. And we have Thor obviously still dealing with his brother and kind of his place in Asgard and in the human realm, and what it is to be a ruler and a warrior, and how do you blend the two. So we still got a lot of continuing arcs going on for each character, and that's great to see in this film. But the beautiful thing is we actually get to see all these characters on screen at the same time and interacting. I've already pointed out Bruce Banner and Black Widow, but we also get to see everybody. You know, you get to see Captain America and Tony Stark meeting for the first time, and straight away you see their kind of clash of ideals and ideologies. You know, Tony Stark's always very much, like I said, a man. Tony Stark is very much, like I said, a man about himself. Captain America, Steve Rogers, was always a man about other people, and straight away they're clashing. You get to see that early setup for like Civil War and stuff like that. It's great seeing all of the characters play of Thor and the fact that he's like this mythical godlike alien stuff. I love Tony Stark's line when he first meets him, saying, "What is this, theatre in the park?" Of course, we don't just get all of the characters hanging out and talking. We also get to see them fight. We also get, you know, a couple of little versus matches. We get Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor. They have like a little three-way fight in these woods. We get Hulk versus Thor later on. Hulk versus Black Widow. We then get Iron Man and Captain America working together and fighting agents and stuff. And it's great to just see those little versus battles. You know, who would have thought that we'd finally get to see Hulk and Thor fighting on the big screen, with Hulk trying to pick up Thor's hammer and failing, and throwing Thor around, and then Thor smacking Hulk around. Fantastic. But as I alluded to earlier on, there's one character that doesn't really get to join that banter, at least not till very later in the film, and even then it's limited, and that is Hawkeye. He didn't get much in his cameo in Thor, and in this film, sadly, from the start, he becomes one of Loki's mindless slaves, and he doesn't really get to do much. He has a good little fight with Black Widow, where she conks him out by knocking his head against this metal beam, and damn, that looks like it hurts, but he wakes up and he's fine, hasn't even got a bruise. But yeah, you just don't get to know too much about his character. You know that he fires bow and arrows, and you know that he's got a history with Black Widow that's alluded to, like a professional history, not a romantic one. But in this film, we don't really get to find out that much about him. We know that he's a good tactician. We know that he's got a good eye for detail and like the surroundings and what's happening in a battle and analysing it. But that's about it. We don't get to know that much about his character. We don't get to see him clash with all of the other characters as much and have that kind of witty banter with everybody as much. Which is a shame, because he was one of the characters going into this film that I was most looking forward to seeing, because we hadn't seen much of him in the previous films. You know, he was only in that 5-minute scene in 4. So the action. Not having to deal too much on introducing each character and getting to know them, because we've already had their origin, means that we can have a little bit more time on the actual action in these films. One of my big criticisms in the past films of the MCU was that sometimes the action's quite quick, and especially when you get to the final battle, you know, sometimes it's over in like 5 minutes. They do 1 or 2 punches and it's gone. In this film, it's action right from the start. And while you're having the action, you get the character moments, you get the character interactions, you have a little bit of downtime, then it's straight back into the action again, and it's just non-stop. I remember seeing it in the cinema, and it was just like a non-stop roller coaster, and for this kind of film, that's exactly what I want. Just non-stop fun, action, entertainment, and this film definitely delivers it. As I mentioned, it starts off with Loki infiltrating the SHIELD base, which is great, particularly for Loki's character, Nick Fury. And then we go into the big mid scene, which is the helicraft carrier assault, where Loki and Hawkeye assault the aircraft carrier. Well, Loki's already been captured, but he's playing with everybody's minds. You know, he's got his scepter there. I think it's like playing around with people's emotions, because you have this great scene where all of the Avengers are in this in Tony's lab and Bruce Banner's lab, and they're just starting to really get into each other and really get underneath each other's skin, and all their different ideals start clashing. And as the scene goes on, you know, you get much more lower and lower shots and more close-ups, and you can see that they're slightly going into madness. Then it ends with Bruce Banner holding Loki's scepter, and he's like, why am I holding this? And Loki's plan is all to get the Hulk out and get the Hulk raging and to get the Avengers fighting one another. And that actually succeeds, and the Hulk comes out, and that's where we get Hulk versus Thor, and Hawkeye attacks the engine. So we have Iron Man and Captain America fixing the engines. Coulson confronts Loki, and one of the saddest scenes in the whole film is that Coulson dies. And you know, this was a character that we'd only really seen in like cameos in the previous films. His biggest moment was in I believe it was 4. Yeah, his biggest moment was in 4, where he was a much more involved character. But to see him die here was so sad. Even going back and rewatching it today, it was still really sad to see him die. You know, he's a character that's had, even with such limited screen time, you've grown so attached to, and especially in the beginning of this film, like I was saying, where he was really fanboying over the Avengers and really getting to know them. You see that he's had little interactions with them all, and it was a really sad scene to see. Obviously we know that he survives because he comes back in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but you know, that still doesn't negate this moment. I'm not quite sure how I feel about him coming back alive, but in this film, you know, if you hadn't seen Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it is definitely a really sad moment. But yeah, that helicraft carrier scene, all of that's really good stuff. The helicarrier itself is awesome. You know, we need them in real life. Come on, scientists, get on it. But following on, pretty shortly after this helicraft carrier scene, we go to the final battle. And unlike the other films, it's not just 1-2 punch, it's over. It's a full-blown Battle of New York. And this is the highlight of the film. And it's so good going back. Even now, it's amazing. It's the characters are still interacting, but you've got all of the action. Loki brings an alien force to Chitauri down. You know, they're pretty bland. They're just alien, like, mercenary hive mind creatures, but you know, they look cool. They got these big Leviathan ships that look really awesome, and just the action and the scenes in this film are just amazing. Like I say, going back to when I first saw this film in the cinema, my mind was blown, you know, seeing all of these characters on screen for the first time. And this scene, you just didn't want it to end, and it just kept going and going and going, and it was amazing. You have Bruce Banner turning back up after he got expelled from the Heli character, and his reintroduction is probably one of the best introductions of any superhero film ever. It's so stupid, and you're like, really? But it doesn't take away anything from the film, because straight after that, you get the next awesome scene with the I'm always angry moment, where Hulk punches the Leviathan. Leviathan goes flying and avoids the Avengers. And you get to find out that Bruce Banner can actually control the Hulk if he really puts his mind to it. That's awesome. Then that leads straight into like one of the most memorable scenes, like the highlight reel scene of this film, where we see all of the Avengers and the cameras panning around them. And then from there, it's just scene after scene, like loads and loads of great moments. Hawkeye firing the bow at Loki and Loki capturing it. Seeing how accurate Hawkeye is with his bows. Seeing Captain America save all of the people and deflect a grenade with his shield. Seeing Tony Stark and Thor flying around. We get all of these great continuous shots where it's going through the city, and we see each Avenger like interacting, flying across one another, working together. There's this great moment where Thor and Hulk are on a Leviathan, and Hulk gets the armor off the Leviathan and stabs it in his head, and Thor gets his hammer and smacks it further into the Leviathan's head. That's all amazing. Loki's interacting with all of the characters at that point, and of course we get to see that scene of Loki and Hulk.
Puny god.
And there's barely any dull moments in this at all, to be honest. The only kind of things I would really pick up on it is just how many bows does Hawkeye have. He just seems to have unlimited number of bows. He's like just constantly like that throughout the entire fight. He just doesn't run out until the plot says that he needs to run out. And then he uses that one as a grappling hook to get down off the building. Any other criticisms I have of this film? There's a few minor ones. One of the biggest ones is that when Tony Stark finally takes out the Chitauri, we find out that a nuclear missile is going to be launched at the city by like these kind of shadow government people, and Tony Stark takes it and flies it up to the portal that the Chitauri are coming out and throws it at their mothership. And then the second it blows up, all of the Chitauri just fall over like the battle droids in Star Wars, and that just seems like a little bit too easy. You know, there's no kind of cleanup needed of going out and hunting all of the Chitauri that are still attacking. You blow up their mothership and they all fall over and die. It's not really explained. I'm guessing they're kind of some kind of like hive mind, interconnected species that are just kind of controlled by. They're basically like drones, essentially, just like organic drones. But that's never really explained. The first time you see it, they just fall over and you're like, oh, well, that was easy. Now we know how to beat them next time. And the other criticism that I have links into that, it's not really a fault of the films. It's more about the promotion of the film. When Iron Man is falling out of the after he's done the nuke and he's falling out of the hole, you're led to believe that, oh, maybe he's not going to make it, maybe he's going to die, but the Hulk jumps up and saves him. Unfortunately, I think that shot was quite prominent in a lot of the trailers and the marketing of the film, so when it gets to that scene, and I remember it in the cinema when he's falling down to earth, my mind's just like, oh, we haven't seen that film where the Hulk saves Tony yet, and sure enough, that's what happens. So that kind of end moment got a little bit spoiled. Obviously, we know that Tony was going to survive, because I think Iron Man 3 was already been announced, and trailers were probably already round the corner. But it still kind of took away from that moment for me. I think I'm glad that Infinity War is only releasing very small amounts of footage, so that, not Infinity War, sorry, Endgame. So when we go into that film, we're not going to get moments like that where it's spoilt. Hopefully, you know, stop promoting it now. I'm already going to see it. But yeah, them two things are really the only kind of major criticisms I have with this film. So when it comes to ranking it, I think it's pretty easy. Avengers Assemble is a gold tier. It's probably better than a gold tier. It is the highest tier I could give it. It is an event exclusive, one time only kind of deal. It is the noir Widowmaker skin of loot. That's how high it is. I love this film. Going back, I enjoy it every single time. There's barely any dull moments for me. Couple of little nitpicks here and there, but overall, fantastic film. Oh, and they improved Thor's eyebrows. They're no longer blonde. Overall, how will I rate the MCU Phase 1 in its entirety? I'd say there were some definite hit and misses. It was far from perfect introduction. We definitely had some stinkers like the Incredible Hulk, and Thor wasn't great, but it was a good introduction overall to the MCU. The definite highlights were the original Iron Man and the final film, Avengers. And I definitely feel like they were very much experimenting and learnt a lot from doing these first few films. But I wouldn't call it the golden age of the MCU just yet. A few of these films are definitely not ones that I'd always go back to and rewatch as much as I would later films in the franchise. So yeah, that was it. Avengers Assemble, or just Avengers if you're not from the UK. What a film. How can the rest of the MCU top that? Well, I'll have to keep going and find out. But let me know what you think of Avengers Assemble. Did you like it? Did you like my review and my thoughts about the film? Let me know in the comments down below, and don't forget, if you did like it, to like and subscribe. I've been Higassin, and I'll talk to you later. He gas 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 gas. He gas gas gas. He gas 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 gas. He gas gas gas. He gassing gassing. He gassing gassing. He gassing gassing gas. He gassing gassing. He gassing gassing. He gassing gassing gas. He gas 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 gas. He gas 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 gas.
You mewling quim.